Pretty cool, eh, Brad?
Very good.
You're dating yourself.
You know who's on the chorus? That's Rockwell. You know who's on the chorus? It's Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Am I dating myself?
Hey,
Hey, so welcome to another BSides podcast. State your name, rank, and serial number. Why are you here?
all right. I'm Russ Doucet. I'm the CTO of INSA Corp.
And my name is Brad Galbraith. I am account executive at INSA Corp.
Awesome. So INSA is a VAR. What's VAR stand for, and how do you put the V in it?
Well, so value-added reseller is what it stands for. I mean, all the security solutions in the marketplace are sold by somebody. Most OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, most OEMs use a channel, which is their reseller community. And so you have your resellers that sell 1 million SKUs and don't really know or care what it is. They make a few points, and then you have value-added resellers that add in services and training and expertise and architecture and all those things in order to improve the value for their clients that are consuming it, and ultimately to ensure successful deployments.
Maybe I'm teasing you a bit on we talked to Fortinet folks before, so they're the OEM, and you guys are a reseller of Fortinet. What's the difference? I hear that going to the government's got some fair competition aspects and procurement. So where do you guys come in there with respect to the public sector that may be a lot different than private sector?
Yeah, so we have a healthy public sector and private sector practice. They're similar but different. Certainly in the government world, at the end of the day, it's all about the RFP. So there'll be a large project with a lot of complicated requirements, and you need to come forth with a good answer for all those requirements, good price, good implementation model, and then be able to follow through on it. So in the government world, it's all about understanding and responding to those
Right.
bid requests, and then being able to execute.
Cool. So what, and that's got its nuances in terms of how to sell. So what brings you to a BSides?
Well, BSides is a little different than some of the other conferences. Some of the good things are the audience here is a lot more diverse, a lot more, white hat hackers, a lot more maybe black hat hackers, different people with different perspectives, so it's kind of fun. It's not all driven by the vendors, so it's not all the big guys with the big messages and everything's polite to what the vendors want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
It's speakers that are maybe a little bit more honest, a little bit more
Progressive,
sort of forthcoming.
up-and-coming,
Yeah, and the titles are somewhat controversial as opposed to milquetoast. Well
Yes,
put.
yeah. So you never quite know what you're going to get here, and that's what's fun about it.
Right.
So So like everybody's on the outside looking in sometimes at cyber. So I want to hear your perspectives for your personal story. How did you get into cyber, but also how did you get to where you are now?
Sure. Well, let's start with Brad. You're a little bit newer in the game than I am, I think.
Sure,
Judging
yeah.
by the gray hair.
Yeah. I actually get asked quite a bit by some of my peers on how do you get into cyber as, our generation looking in. There's not a lot of schooling that has cyber programs yet. They're working on it, right? It's being built now, but that leads to the question is how do you get in? And for me, step one is you have to know somebody in the realm. So networking, obviously, I have you that helped me get my foot in the door, but I feel like unlike other careers, once you get your foot in the door, there's still a massive step of proving yourself. Whereas a multitude of other careers, once you get your foot in the door, you're kind of fine. You kind of can coast your way through and you'll be good.
There's a path.
Right, yeah, you can get your foot in the door, but you still have to work your way through to even be allowed to stay in the field, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me specifically, I took a shot at a startup and gained as much experience as I could through there. Didn't get paid for almost 6 months of that, as startups work.
Startup life, yeah.
But took the risk and got the experience through it, and actually turned down a guaranteed contract with who they were getting bought out by, and that ended up leading me into INSA, which turned out to be a great decision. But yeah, you have to know somebody in there, networking to get there, and then you have to prove yourself through. And if that's by not getting paid for a while, then that's by not getting paid for a while.
What? Looking over at you, Russ. One, I'm curious how you got into cyber. One, not the gray hair thing, but back in the day, right? There wasn't such thing as a cyber career path.
Not at all.
But
No.
the second part is, how do you? It's a tournament, right? Like Brad said, just because you're in, to get to be the big dog, to be a CTO or a CEO or an owner, it's a tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe, how'd you get started? A, B, how do you get to the, not to the top, but how do you move up in cyber?
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, realistically, when I started my IT career, there was no such thing as cyber at all. It wasn't even a thought, really. Hacking was the earliest forms of hacking, and it was done by, you know, basically people looking for trophies and fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I actually have a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science. I don't recommend that. That's not, it has its value, but that's not my recommended career path for anybody, honestly.
You're implying it's almost counterproductive?
I wouldn't say it's counterproductive, but if you really look at what you invest in that kind of a way to get into this field, the payback is far less than what I would recommend as a career path, which basically boils down to certifications. So rewind a little bit, what did I do? I was in basically general IT for quite a few years and learned, you know, networking and servers and all that kind of stuff. I did private, and then I did corporate, and then at some point I realized that I needed to focus my career. You reach a point where you realize, you know, either you need to specialize or you need to move up into full management, like pure management. And I was not ready, certainly at that time, to be pure management, to not be on the keyboard, not be doing anything with technology, to strictly be managing people, because that's ultimately that's the top of the pyramid, and not everybody's cut out for that.
Right. Or it's giving up the special. You stop being a specialist and start being a people management specialist.
Right. The technology actually becomes in the rearview mirror. I certainly wasn't ready for that in my 20s. I picked the specialization of cybersecurity quite deliberately. It was new at that time, and started working within that field. And so once you're in that field, so as Brad says, there's a million ways to get into it. You have to show a bit of initiative, you have to work your way in. But if you're just willing to work hard, you can find your door somewhere. How you move up, in my view, as a technical person as opposed to account rep, is all about certifications. If you have an industry certification in this product or that product or multiple products, you're immediately more interesting than the next guy that doesn't, right? And if you think about what a company needs when a computer science graduates in year 4 and says, okay, here I am, I'm ready to work. What do you know how to do? You don't know how to do anything but develop software.
Right.
Well, if that's the field you're in, fine, that's not cyber. Right? But if you're certified on a security product, that's an immediate skill set that somebody can use. Once you get that opportunity, once you get in the door, now it's on you to learn everything you can learn.
Yeah.
Certify everything you can certify.
Yeah.
So the certifications are partially about learning, but also about proving your skill set.
I agree.
Yeah.
And that makes you mark.
They're kind of like pelts. They're cyber pelts, right?
I think that's where our stories intertwine too, is that once you get in, you really need to prove your worth. Like, you can't just rest on your laurels. And actually, I do think the certs help on the sales side too for a different reason, and that's because you're going to get a multitude of salespeople coming from other fields coming in, and because there's not a ton of schooling that you can back yourself with, how do you set yourself apart? There's
That's your
lots of guys
credibility.
who can prove, oh, I've made this amount of revenue and I've done year over year, but if you can add that, hey, I'm an SE 1, 2, and 3 to add to that, and I've also dealt with some of these other companies, well, now you're going to start pegging yourself a little bit higher.
That's an interesting, of course, I'm just purposely trying to talk about self-defense, but it's about getting belts, right? And I know we use those metaphors. I'm a wrestler, I got ground game, but the point you're making is, if I show up and show you all my certs, and I start saying I know this and that about cyber, here's my recommendation, you've got all that stuff on the wall, so to speak, because there's no degree. There's no proof that you know what you're talking about.
Right.
So, like I said, it's, well, show me your credentials, and if you can't back up even what you're selling with certifications, is what else do we have to go with, right?
So certifications accomplish a couple things. So if I take it back to sit at my CTO desk now and look at why why I certify, why my guys certify, why we like certifications, they do a couple of things. One, yes, there is learning associated with them. That's, of course, the primary goal, the stated goal. I want to certify to learn something. So that's obviously one piece. The second piece is, once you're certified, or if you're in the community and you have certifications within your company, you're making a statement to your customers that you have expertise. You have formalized expertise that's been recognized.
Right.
And you're dedicated too, right? Like
Right.
the certification, it's not like, oh, I'm going to apply for this certification. Because even as when I want to partner with the vendor, I have to get sales certified. For me, I'm more of a SC type,
Right.
so I have to get SC certified as well. And that's dedication. Not like it shows your customer, yes, but also shows the vendor, like your partner, especially as a value-added reseller. That's the V that you're providing the vendor. The value is
100%.
that we're willing to go out and
Right.
be your feet on the street and learn your product, right?
That is exactly the third point. So it's
Wow.
learn, show the community, the consumers, the customers, and show the vendors, because then the vendors can count on you,
Yep.
form closer relationships with you, bring you in for their internal education, or give you resources to go into the field, everything else. Lots of different things happen.
Sorry to hijack that up.
No, that's
Good, perfect.
That's a good point about why if you're just a bar and you haven't invested in the OEM, they go, well, so we're gonna still have to bring our ninjas in,
Right.
and you go, no, I got the
You want
ninja
to
part.
be the ninjas, right?
Well,
Yeah.
and the part of sitting on your laurels too, right? Like I could have easily come into INSA and just focused on what we were focusing on and just sold Fortinet, that's our big thing, and done that. But every time we partner with someone new and somebody from the team has to take the training, I take it every time.
Nice.
Because I know that I'm going to be gaining experiences. I know that I'm becoming more valuable to INSA by doing this, right?
Mhm.
So you just have to be taking the initiative to do those things, or you
Mhm.
can easily get booted back out.
So
Yeah.
so someone Peter Spanley brought this up, but like what attracted him to cyber is there's an opponent. And so like it's initiative and continuous learning are really nice ideas, but to your point, you'll get humbled if you have a bunch of certs today and you're the ninja. It's a bit like, again, UFC, but guess what? People are learning new skills, and if you don't chase those new skills and new techniques, you're going to get humbled.
Yeah, it's ever changing, right? It's so vast. And so even so, for another instance, like we could get an RFP that comes out and my boss may bring it to me and be like, I don't know anything about this. This is the first time we've been hearing of this. And if I have some knowledge in that, I become very valuable to the company again, right?
Yeah.
So there's just so many ways to do it, but there's not really a good set way. You've got to be someone who can go out, figure it out on your own, and continue to learn, right?
So that what's cool about that is after Peter came Jerry, and Jerry's always chasing the future, right? And you go,
Yeah,
well, like,
very
why?
much.
Yeah.
And he goes, because it's coming.
Yeah.
It's definitely coming in cyber, right?
Yeah, there's not a lot of technology fields, or at least my initial take on it was where you have the kind of the humanitarian, I'm doing something good aspect that you would in, say, being a doctor or whatever.
Right.
But essentially the mission of keeping the hackers out and keeping data safe can be something that you can internalize as a success for your projects. Like when we do, a large government
Right.
project, we know we've improved the security of the country essentially by helping protect government resources, and that's something that's hard to get in a lot of technology areas. Like
Yeah.
We have this theory of Moneyball. Like, here's the 5 skills that make you like go into SOC and succeed and be a cyber guy. And here's the intangibles. And one of them is mission people, right? You gotta think that at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Whereas no, I did code and R&D. It's to make money. And it's
Yeah.
like, but what's the mission? Is Carl like let's just make money.
Yeah, I think
Cyber's a mission.
when I was looking at software development, so essentially a BSc, at least back in the 90s, was...
I was gonna say 80s, but
Yeah,
well, that's me and my music, right?
It's all 90s. Started in 91. The specter of being, an ant in an anthill coding on some chunk of some big software project with 150 other people is utterly unappealing. I had no desire to do that whatsoever. I didn't really realize there's a lot of other ways to go about software development.
Fair
There's
enough.
lots of cool,
Right.
Yeah.
there's lots of cool. So a lot of my peers went on to do really neat things, and that was not a giant,
Yeah.
molehill of programs. So
To
fair
be
enough.
honest, I went to DevOps for that reason. One, I wasn't a good ant, and two,
Yeah.
no one wanted to do DevOps, and DevOps is a thing now.
Yeah, it's cool. It's very cool, and you can get a lot done as a single guy, like just doing your thing with a small
Yeah.
team. But the idea of cyber is something where you could have that kind of reason for being, and kind of like
Yeah.
you could go. So I'm more at this point more on the pre-sale side and architecture side, and I've always been doing that along with the technical. But the idea you can go somewhere that has a challenge, they have a problem, they have a worry, they want to stay out of the papers, they want to keep
Yeah, yeah.
running, they want to keep making
Yeah.
money, whatever and you can create something that's good for them, that's going to help them accomplish their mission for less money than they sort of thought,
Yeah.
and then keep them safer and keep all of them working. There's a satisfaction in that. For sure.
I want to jump on 2 of those things. One is that, and again, Peter Smanley got into this, you can't just be STEM. If you want to move up and be more important, like if you're in cyber for passion, but also that utility function, you got to realize that there's a security business enabler. So you do have to get into business side and ROI. And like you said, it's got to be a double win. It's like, I kept you safe, but I saved you money.
Yeah, I mean, though you can't. It's hard to make a career as a complete purist and nothing focusing on the bits and bytes. And those guys can there's interesting jobs in SOCs and there's certain niches. But
Yep.
in the world that we live in, it is ultimately all about about money, or at least functionality in the government, which
Yep.
in the end of the day comes down to money as well. But there's you have to have an understanding of what those factors are and how they play against technology. So certainly understanding business. Once you get to a certain level, you simply must have that business understanding in order to move up into more prominent roles, because the business side of it always comes into play at some point.
The corollary of that, again, back to the Smetany interview, he went, but you still got to get your hands dirty. Not just out of interest, but to your point, if you just become a pure and applied manager and say a CIO or a director, and you lose touch with your technology, in cyber you'll get owned. So even if you don't have to be an expert, but you sure better get back down there and go, what's all this new stuff?
Yeah, and I mean, at some point you're talking about layered teams where maybe you're counting on people below you, but you have to understand their technology enough to understand what they're telling you, how to work with them, for them, beside them, in order to accomplish things. And if you can't understand their messaging, then you're flying blind.
This is my, and we're going to bring in some recovering CISOs after this,
Yeah.
and you know, I've always warned people when they go, Carl, how do I become you? And it's like, well, one, it's a fluke that I got there as a CISO, but to your point about just accidental.
Well, good opportunity chasing. I wouldn't call it a fluke.
Yeah, well put. Yeah, opportunity chasing. But the point, you're right. It wasn't an accident,
Right.
even though I was an accidental tourist. But I went, you're thinking of slicing across. Like you're thinking it's another C-level job. And I go, you got to be top floor to shop floor. You don't have to. You can rely on people. But if you think you can walk in from another, it would be like me going, I'd like to try and be a CFO, and the person would go, you kind of need a little more than an accounting degree, and you need to be a bookkeeper, and otherwise you can't rule over that roost without understanding how to balance a checkbook and finances.
It's like when we sometimes hear the engineer say, I'm just gonna switch to the sales side. I'm like, well, I don't think it's as easy as you think it is.
Yeah,
You know?
there's a whole set of skills you build over years, and if you've had that mindset of I want to keep learning, I want to keep expanding my skills, when the opportunities come, you'll be able to you'll have the depth to be able to do those kinds of things.
And the people that have those multitude of skills, the Russes, the Carls of the world, that's why you get to where you are, because there's very few that can do the different aspects of the job well, right? Like, you can survive as a one-trick pony in cyber, but the Swiss Army knives are the people who actually rise to the top, right?
Wow.
Yeah, it's I call it perpetual student,
Right.
Because like, if you don't accept that things change, and you don't desire to understand what's new, then
Especially
you know?
in this field.
Yeah.
This is the one field you can't
Yeah.
be complacent, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, you'll get humbled. You see
Yeah.
how we complimented us both in the same sentence? That's sales. That's
That's
sales. That's the economy of
Yeah.
sales right there.
Yeah. I noticed that was left out too.
But
So
that's how the podcast works. Is yeah, Steve might have a question. Where is he? I feel like the clock on the wall says that's a wrap. Any other? Is there a question you're hoping I was gonna ask that I didn't ask, or what?
No,
Question I was looking for? No, I'm used to working with you, and all the cool ideas come out of that head. So I'm just here as the accidental tourist this time.
Oh, well put, and
Nice.
and thanks for saying I wasn't a fluke, Brad. That's it's people are looking.
kind of has to, doesn't it?
Yeah, he's got, I'm looking. This whole podcast is about me seeking validation.
That's the point of this.
Yeah. Okay, man. Awesome.
All right.
Photo
Thanks
time.
very much, guys.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
That was awesome, guys. That was really awesome.
Do like an after photo?
Yeah.
Yeah.